Hello and welcome everyone. This is Black Adder at Black Adder's Place yet again with the Frozen Times tournament. And even though we are moving basically into next to the last week, as even though there are finals and bronze medal match, there is still the bad luck bracket to be finishing next week with its finals. I am going to be streaming today the semifinals that have been played on Sunday, cast by Miracle Man. And well, as you can see, it's going to be between Honor players and the Scrubs. It was a pretty great match, so we have very good games coming for us this evening. And for example, if you are going to be watching on YouTube as well. So the first map, as you can see, is going to be Black Sea. That has been selected as the home map of Honor players, as they are actually the higher seeded team in the tournament, 2 and 3. So these teams are 2 and 3s. They are 2, so they are choosing first. And then the settings are that their opponents, the Scrubs, will be choosing the next two maps. They have to be different home maps, and the fourth map is going to be, yet again, a different home map for the Honors. So it's a best of 5, and the fifth game, if needed, is on Frozen Times random, chosen just from the maps that are included in the Frozen Times map set, which is basically any kind of normal map that has snow, but without Jotunheim, because that's potentially it could be interesting to see how expert players actually approach it. But yeah, maybe another time. Didn't really feel like that it would add anything all that great into the gameplay. And I would be expecting that players wouldn't really be all that happy about the map as well. So maybe next time in another tournament. In the meantime, of course, we are seeing quite expert players from both teams in here. For example, for the Scrubs, we are seeing Fox, I Magic, and Schulte. Fox is going to be playing Ra, Magic, Ra as well, so these two are basically main Egyptians. So it makes sense. And for this map, of course, the Shifting Sands and potentially the Rocks are, of course, going to be quite useful. Their teammate, Schulte, is going to be playing Oranos. So that's a thought, basically, for Symphonian Birds for some kind of support from the air if they shift in sands or whatever on the other side of the map. And of course, for sky passages, if he is able to manage to get some villages across other citizens. Otherwise, for the other team, Honor players, we are seeing Metallo, who is going to be playing Zeus. Of course, Underworld Passage is definitely going to be useful in this kind of scenario. His teammate Goldline is playing Hades, basically the same reason. Also Underworld Passage. And the last player, Green Sea Squash, is playing Oranos. Yep, so that's basically the same train of thought as with Schulte and potential for sky passages on this type of map. If you are not really sure what I'm talking about, it's because the map is like this. It's basically a combination of Mediterranean and River Nile, we could be saying, and it's important to control the water, but still, there are quite a lot of options how you can overcome this expanse of water, even if you don't control it, and that's exactly the underworld passages, sky passages, rocks. You can have transport from Kronos, the time shift. Then there are some other things like the shifting sands from the Egyptians. Yeah, really quite a lot of options at your disposal. For example, if Norse, even though you might be thinking they have nothing useful, they of course can use the sneaky thing that nobody basically uses, and that's the longboats. Basically, their main fighting boat for the water is able to transport units. So you can basically easily just fight for the water, send one back, or just leave it next to the dock, get some Ulfsarks on it, transport it to the other island, and you are basically good to go. Yeah, all the civilizations have some kind of abilities of what to begin with and what to do on this kind of map. So we are going to be starting, for example, with looking at Gold Lion, who is in the pocket position for his team and seems to be having pretty much normal start. This map is not really any kind of unfair and such. It's basically standard model, and I would be saying it's basically one of the better ones because this has been created by Ensemble Studios. It's their original creation, and somehow didn't really find its way into the original game. I think it was just introduced a bit later, as it was with, I think it was maybe in the gold version included or some such. It was just released a bit later, not with the expansion or anything like that. And of course that means that it's going to be close to what the original map spawned us, but really, from my experience, it's much better than that. Well, we are looking that he's going to be, of course, scouting. There's not going to be all that much interesting stuff happening in the early minutes, because, of course, the players are hard divided, so it's just going to be up to the placement of the rocks, which seems to be pretty nice for Lion, Gold Lion, having the fishies on both sides of the rock. And if we are looking at, for example, The red player is also not having any kind of problem, and it's basically just in difference right now from the red because he is much closer to the big pond in the middle, whereas the yellow player is much more to the bottom, so he's much more interested in controlling the straight, and it's kind of signaling that teams might be having different ideas about how to play the start of the game. Because if you are aiming for the middle, it basically tells me that you are interested in bulking the army and basically fighting more in the middle and win the water overall. Whereas if you are building a whole lot more to the flank, I'm thinking, for example, like Shelty or the players at the top, they might be thinking a bit more about landing their opponents secretly through this part of the map. I would be expecting that Green Sea Squash will be keeping the Oracle in this position to exactly not be surprised by something like that, and I would be thinking that Shelty should be arriving with at least one of the Oracles at the bottom as well, even though so far he's just using them for a bit of scouting. Looking, for example, into pocket position, nothing unusual as we are seeing that Magic is in the pocket and empowering for the woodline, but that's usual because we are on a water map, and of course that will mean a big need for the wood of all the players. Second dog already up for Magic, so he's definitely thinking about positioning himself a bit more to the south, as you can see. So he is basically doing something like Green Sea Squash, but a bit differently. And I'm definitely curious where Shelty is gonna drop the second dog, as I would be thinking that building it about here would be basically the logical sense, the logical thing to do, and if maybe Green Sea Squash is going to be joining him at the bottom or not. Right now, I don't think it makes all that much of a sense for Green Sea Squash, because the fishies are of course already taken, so he might be a bit more interested in going for the middle and having a bit more effective economy. That's also the reason why it's usually a better idea to go a bit more to the flank, because you are getting more fishies, and in the middle, yeah, even if you go late to there, you are still going to be having something to fish there, whereas if you go late as potentially Green Sea Squash, you have nothing else to take there from your opponent. So yep, you have to be careful what to choose and what's going to be the better idea. In the meantime, of course, at the top, not any kind of problem so far with the fishies, even though there's going to be the very last one, probably taken for the green player. Yeah, definitely aiming through corner, and he's going to be forced to join into the middle as well. But since he's an Egyptian, he doesn't mind at all, as of course he's having already two dogs, building a third right close by, so that he has some defensive position for the early fights. As of course, these positions of these players are quite close by, and they will be having to deal with the rock fire quite often. What we can look at, for example, we are seeing that yellow is still not really paying attention to the bottom, so not expecting any kind of fast landing from his opponent, but we can, for example, look at the relics, which are for better villager hit points. That's not bad, but probably nothing all that important on this map. Recharge time for myth units, that's kinda the same. Better villager food carrying capacity, that could be useful. That could be useful in some early late game. That could give you some slight boost to the economy. Better building LOS, that's a very nice one. Especially on a map basically like this, that's all about surprise landings, surprise underworld passage, rock flying and such. That's really pretty great relic to be having. So shouldn't be underestimated at all by honor players. And its next relic is kill animal single shot. Yeah, that sucks. And cheaper armory researches. Oh well, that's yet another pretty great relic for early later game. Well, we are right now advancing into the classical ages, of course. The first one is Green Sea Squash. Shelty not really far behind. And second dog has been built a bit more to the middle, as expected from Shelty, whereas red is having one, so far, not to the bottom, but exactly into the middle. So yeah, they are doing exactly what I would be doing, as it really makes sense. Then to go for no fishies at the bottom, and this is really nicely played, of course, by both of them. And let's see who's going to be winning the battle. So far it's up to the Green Sea Squash, because of course, he has advanced slightly faster into the next age. The other players are still not really on. Just got Lion and Metal are, but of course Ras, yeah, why would they be herring in the next age that shifting sands for Ptah? And we'd be expecting the same from Fox as well, of course. So they are going to be joining later, but that doesn't really mean anything all that much, because of course, since we are basically on waters very similar to Anatolia, that's something that Egyptians are very good at, and of course, this is not going to work out for Metal at the top fight all that much. In the meantime, I will be thinking it would be the best idea to basically concentrate at the bottom, basically to kill in Shelty before his teammates are up, because if they can kill Shelty now, they will be having just 2 opponents against them. A bit later, they still have 2 restorations, of course, and I'm thinking that would be a pretty clever idea. But looking also at the 2 restorations, I'm not exactly sure if I agree all that much with this kind of strategy. I would probably be going for at least 1 ceasefire or Metallo, as this is, of course, because Hades doesn't have it. For a simple reason, because if you are having Underworld Passage, and on this map you are going to be able to somehow luckily, or rather luckily, outmaneuver your opponent and basically go for Underworld Passage to some maybe even back TC like this one, if it is not really captured anytime soon, you could be just basically stealing it, and that could be your base of operations for trying to conquer the land of your opponent. So I'm thinking they're actually giving up one very important strategical option for the hope that they will be winning the water convincingly. But of course, against double Egyptians, yeah, not even the restorations do have to be enough. And it's so far looking that, of course, they will be winning so far because, yeah, you don't see anybody joining from the Egyptians. But otherwise, well, it's pretty big risk, to be honest. They're basically playing just on one card or winning the water. And if they don't win it, then it's going to be up to the correct usage of Underworld Passages. But without the ceasefire, I'm kind of thinking that the effectivity is going to be down for them. Well, of course, there's not going to be all that much interesting stuff on the water, as we are seeing a bit of a killing of water economy for Shelty, of course, and second DC has been captured for Magic, and third already as well. But same is true for Fox, because of course that's what you would be expecting, as they are taking the game slow, not thinking about the water at all. And that's, I think, a bit of a surprise for their opponents, because, again, because of the Egyptian dogs, they cannot really close the water at all in the classical age, and once the Egyptians go into heroic, yeah, unless Gold Line with Metallo are in the next stage as well, it's of course going to be kinda easy game for the Ras on the water. Second DC for Green Sea Squash, Gold Line is already at 2 as well. Wouldn't be surprised if we went for third pretty soon also. Time, Blue is still at just 1, having a bit of idols in here, but that's probably just temporary. Of course, as he was finishing with the boar for a bit more effectivity, and right now he's switching into the chickens, and going to be switching into the heroic age. Exactly as expected, as that is something that would be worthwhile for them. Nothing else right now for Magic. Back TC right now captured by, of course, the yellow player, and you can see yet again purple player, exactly as we have seen yesterday in the streamings, giving basically farms to his ally, because for an Atlantean farms cost 200 wood, whereas for an Egyptian that's a 70 gold. So yep, that's something that you can do in the team games, and of course it's quite valuable and definitely one of the signs of a better team gameplay than when you are not doing it. So that second TC, third TC of course being captured by Gold Line, so far not really second still by Metallo, so he's definitely going full on into the faster heroic. Of course, through Apollon, so not any kind of help from Skillas as we are looking at Rain, and you would be probably expecting the Rain follow-in from his teammate Fox as well. So yeah, this is going to be a very big boost for the economy of both of these Egyptians. They should be advancing into the heroic age just because they are going to be having a lot of arms for them. Having Plow and Shaduf, we're expecting the same of course for Magic, White of course, and he's also having Husbandry. Okay, so that's definitely nice. And did Fox have it?
In which?
Yeah. He had it as well, and that's important because it basically lowers the walking time, and especially under rain. It's making a whole lot of difference because, of course, since they are gathering so much faster, it means that they are walking also a whole lot faster, and that means that if you are having husbandry, you are much more effective and getting a whole lot of extra food as opposed if you weren't. Well, 30C right now captured by Fox as well, or rather Shelty, so that's all 3 scraps at 3 TCs, whereas they are, of course, not really interested in the water, but that's going to be changing pretty soon, I'm thinking, as soon as they hit the heroics, but they still need to be careful, because the first one is Apollo from Metallo, who is already having Pulsane, so having pretty good water economy for himself. Fox right now going to be clicking into heroic age, but it should be 4 rocks, aka half 4. Expecting that Magic will be having the same. Yeah, will be right now clicking as well. Just now finishing exactly as he was having enough gold, so it was very nice timing. And exactly not going to be having any idle time at all. Yep, farms already captured by the ally. But of course, this means that Shelty is going to be losing the dock, and he will need all the protection that he can get from his allies a bit later, as they are still kind of futilely trying to get rid of the docks, but without siege boats, it should be coming in reasonably soon, I would be thinking. Switch to observer point of view, and they surprisingly enough still aren't, and this is very important right now by Fox, because he's realizing that there might be a bit of a problem if he is not controlling this part of the water, and he would at least right now be seen if the boats are coming this way or if they aren't. Put on the fog of war. Still, this relic not captured by other players. This is a pretty big mistake on a map like this, but maybe they don't have the extra information and don't really remember the names of them. Yep, that's a reason why you should be studying that as well. Oh, that's not gonna finish. That's certainly not gonna finish. And especially with blue right now moving into the position, I'm still waiting for the siege boats, and they are still not coming, even though second DC is up, but that's the reason. That's because he is going for Hephaestus, and we could be expecting some very sneaky builds. You can see already they are preparing right now in the middle, and that's going to be a whole lot of archers from Gold Lion, and it's going to be mixed, well, not sure with Myrmidons or Hoplites. I'll be expecting Hoplites, but of course you can see double temples, so of course Colossi coming in with the Mythical Age. Well, you're also seeing that the transport has been already established, so Red is right now going to be entering the enemy island, and I'm fairly certain that actually Yellow doesn't know about it. Yeah, that's in the fog of war right now. He's moving to the bottom, and he will be right now seeing it, so he knows, but it's going to be a bit too late because the building is already there, and there is a bit of a support at least, but he needs to be careful. And is he going to be able to escape? He should be, yeah, he's escaping right now, but still, the building is up, and that's quite important because, of course, if it wasn't for those lions, those Murmilos are going to be coming up and will be problematic together with the boats right in tow. Bit of scouting with this Nymph Lambert, of course, and that's going to be quite useful, of course, for Underworld Passage. Mythical Power being cast, Mythical Age from Green Sea Squash, so that's pretty nice hurrying up into the next ages, and I'm just going to be checking if Gold Lion is also coming up. I would be expecting so pretty soon. Drop in market, Gold Lion up, well, doesn't have the gold, but it's going to be close by in there, as we are seeing the Tartarian Gate being cast right next to Shelty, who is coming into Helios. So good TC placement, or rather good Tartarian Gate placement, but unfortunately it's probably not going to be all that effective as to take down the TC before the next age is reached. Yeah, poor birdie is gonna die, as purple is already aiming for a bit more speed into the bottom, and you can see that the second landing, basically the second part of the first landing, is quite useful, and we are also right now coming for the Underworld Passage at the top. So the unit of choice for the blue player is going to be Myrmidon. Now you may be a bit more liking the Hoplites, basically just get rid of town centers and everything all that faster, because of course, since we are seeing that the Egyptian could be having enough gold. Let's switch into Fox. Well, not really, but could be having enough. One bolt. Now hit points almost dead. Now they're going for Son of Osiris to finish my thought. He could be spamming mercenaries to help him in their battle. And with the... Oh! Double restoration. Well, that's pretty bad, basically. Yeah, that's pretty bad because they've just wasted one of the restorations in here. And, oh well, 45 DC at the nick of time. So let's see if maybe Fox will be able to defend, because this is looking quite promising for them. But looking at the three Colossi, he should be able to handle this. But looking at the Son of Osiris, he could be helping. Let's see. Back to it. Tornado being cast from the very back. It's of course going to be up to it to kill the Underworld Passage, and yet he's turning to the bottom. So goodbye for Underworld Passage, and it's going to be up to the second one. And you can see quite lucky placement, and basically advancing to the next age, because he was able to catch all the villagers that were coming through from Gold Lion. And that's super important, because even though he might lose the TC right now, there are no villages through, which means that there's no possibility for the opponents to hang on to the situation in here, and that's basically one restoration, or rather one Underworld Passage wasted pretty much. So we are seeing also pretty big battle at the bottom between Green Sea Squash and Shelty, and of course Earthquake coming in. That should be goodbye TC, and it's badly cast. It's very badly cast because it was cast about here into nothing. which meant that it killed basically just the TC and one house. Whereas if it was cast at the bottom, which it couldn't have been all that much because of the Hesperi tree, but I'm still thinking there was a better placement for it. Or just like this, exactly, steal it from your opponent and then cast it. Yeah, I think that was a bit of a panic right now on Gold Lion's side. I think it could have been played better. If he did, he would be killing absolutely everything for Shelty. And he wouldn't be able to rebuild fast enough. You can see he's just now rebuilding at the back with Underworld Passage coming in. And oh my, that would have been so difficult for him to defend. Huh, I actually don't see he could be defending at all. That could have been a winning move right there, because Shelty would be totally killed. And it would be very easy for the red to deal with it. And you can see right now she's intense to the bottom, because Fox is going to be helping his teammate with Migdol into the defense. And this is, I think, a better decision than using it for attack on the opponent's land. Because of course they need to protect their town centers, and they need to make sure that somehow they put the opponents out of the position, and Son of Osiris is going to be absolutely invaluable in this effort. At the top, the Underworld Passage is still very much alive, as they are just now killing the DC from Gold Line, rather, the Gold Line, but Shifting Sands are right now being used as a defensive measure, and it worked quite nicely, because he was able to transport two Colossi. And where is the other way into the Underworld Passage? Also at the top, which is very far away, and I wouldn't be expecting they will be joining in through place anytime soon. So Locusts be cast to prevent the fortress from coming up. That's a clever idea. Yeah, careful, purple or other teal. Losing the villages. Definitely could be casting another locust right here. Let's wait if that's going to be the case or not. But in the meantime, Shelty is of course trying to retake the TC, as he's having pretty decent economy. Not really upgrades, you can see absolutely nothing. 16 minutes. Yeah, well, probably will be expecting at least mediums somewhere, but it's not the case, whereas you are seeing champion Toxots with copper, at least mail and weapons, which is of course going to be working very nicely for the teal player, whereas purple is also with champions looking like it, with coppers, but iron weapons. So of course that's going to be quite deadly, and there is right now the attempt for the Underworld Passage, especially with the support of the mercenaries from the ramp. So are there somebody just still alive? Oh yeah, they very much are. And we are looking at another batch of locusts being cast, trying to get rid of all the villagers, and this Avenger, oh well. Yeah, that was nice back in the animation. Is definitely gonna be killing all of them, as they are not getting away from him by 5, but only 3.8 speed. Oh yeah, he's gonna slaughter them one by one. In the meantime, Underworld Passage is just going to be coming down, so that's the second option for the opposing team gone, and they are pretty much out of options. Right now it's going to be all up to the water, which isn't really fought for anymore. So Underworld Passage defended quite nicely, but they still do have some villages at the bottom. And so that means that they need to be careful, but unfortunately for them, Magic is well aware what's going to happen in here. So let's see if those Gastra feats are going to be able to do at least some kind of damage. They are of course having pretty big extra against pretty much everything that burns. And well, right now Murmills with the Spearmen coming to the bottom, and they will be probably getting rid of all the nonsense that is so far camped right side of the map. Right about now, what they are going to do. We are seeing that the green player has taken the TC from Shelty, so he's right now at 4, whereas Shelty has just 2, which basically means, well, not all that effectivity for Shelty, but otherwise it doesn't really matter all that much. But it was a clever decision, or correct decision, because really Fox needed to somehow establish himself in here, or Magic, to help them with the mercenaries and basically allow his teammate Yellow to be having some kind of effective push against the red player, who is quite nicely camped at this position and is building another palace, trying to secure his position at this point. I'm kind of curious why his teammates aren't joining him in, because they right now need to hurry up, because they have wasted basically both of their options. You can see the last Colossi, another Colossus just now getting killed. At the concerted efforts of the Petsuchos, Vajet and Priests, and DC of course, whereas at the bottom we are of course going to be seeing basically all the battles right now, and all the armies concentrating on getting rid of the red player, and then, let's see, finally we are seeing exactly what should have been done, and that is Gold Line using the opportunity to transport some villages into the middle of the map as well. Right now, of course, this is a pretty good pretty good position for them, but he needs to somehow, I don't know, maybe build fortresses, or at least towers, because they need something to fall back on, as this is not going to be all that easy anymore for them, as we are also looking at the other side. They are doing a pretty good job of killing the TCs from the water, as they are having the siege boats, and so far the advantage on the water. They are still having a few boats in here, but looking like Magic is about to go back into the water. He's having some extra upgrades on the heavy ramming galleys, of course, reinforced rams, and of course all the upgrades for the unit. So he is right now getting angry and getting into the battles on the waters. Of course, same is true right now at the top, because Metallo is finally trying to get rid of what is coming in there. Whew. Well, that was one lucky break. That was one lucky break for Metallo, because he was ready to actually put everything onto the boat. And oh my, this is still pretty risky. Could be losing a ton of units if he's caught up with. Let's see. Let's see, so far villagers just been ready, so that they are transported somewhere. And they seem to be moving across the shoreline, but of course you can see all the towers coming up with the Migdol for Fox, so it shouldn't be really all that much of a success. But still, they could be able to build at least a few buildings, and that is a bit of a problem. Yep, Migdol also not any kind of surprise, would be expecting maybe mercenaries coming up. But he's having the Migdol, so that's probably going to be chariot archers coming up and dealing with everything. Some elephants. And still, those dudes are waiting for the transport, but that's not coming so far. In the meantime, of course, Green is still having it, or rather paying enough attention at the bottom, but probably not enough at the top, as he's trying to help his yellow teammate. Bronze, bronze, copper. On the upgrades, Berian's red is a champion archive, and with just copper line. And yet another palace coming up. But of course, with right now purple being quite strongly into the water, he's killing absolutely everything and threatening the dominance on it. That was so far basically unquestionable for the opposing team, for the honor players. Yeah, we are seeing that yellow is also getting his feet under himself yet again. Heavy archive, bronze and bronze. So he's probably going to be getting rid of at least the bottom part of the buildings, but of course still it's not going to be all that easy, as he's at 2 TCs against 3, and or rather just 1 TC, as he's trying to finish with the second, and he definitely needs some help. But looking at the top, we are finally seeing that the transport has succeeded with all the colossi, and they are definitely in a pretty good spot to deal as much damage as they can. But Fox was already preparing like 5 minutes ago. He is, with the mercenaries, with the upgrade from Ra. Going to be quite effective in the long run, of course, because the trade route is already established and empowered by the Son of Osiris, which means that that's going to be a whole lot of gold for them. You can see 305 for Magic, whereas for the green player, where is he? Yeah, he's going to opposite direction. It's 259. Okay, so pretty effective gold mining, or rather, instead of gold mining for them. On the other side of the map, we are seeing 127 just for gold line, of course, so that's basically, you can see that the Egyptians are having basically double or triple of the markets, of the market usage. Right now you can see 291 in here, and oh, we are just lucky on the rock transport, and that's going to be a few villagers with priests trying to make an appearance on the enemy base, and oh, they are aiming for exactly the seed spot. And let's see if the drop of Migdol is going to be successful or not. So far it seems like that they probably are not really all that aware, Metallo with Green Sea Squash. But probably they right now will be knowing about it because of those spearmen. As we are seeing, of course, at the top, not much success to be had for Metallo. And well, definitely need to be taking care of all those docks. But of course, that's slow work with the slow attack of all the boats that are siege. So establishing of the Migdol is right now underway with barracks as well. Bit of a raid in, but unfortunately for them, Goldline is of course having a pretty decent amount of Hades shades right now. We're helping him in the water, rather in the battle, and since he was already having military buildings right next to it, he's of course able to supply enough units to help with the defense and getting rid even of the rock. Yeah, in pool or not? Ah, the last shot, that was definitely Frog Iron, because it quite a big hit. The rock took quite a bit hit, and that means that the rock is gone, but still, even though this first landing is not really successful, basically rock can do this anytime. and without any kind of problem, because he can have basically infinite amount of rocks, which means that of course he is going to be having a very very much easier time than what his opponents are of landing the opponent's side. In the meantime, Metallo is switching from landing at the left, because of course that was a pretty tough moment for him, into the right side, as we are having Titan being researched. And he's quite nice to establish himself at this position. And even though he's having champion Myrmidons with all the upgrades, like literally all of them, even conscripts, Aegis Shield, literally everything in here. We are also looking at Fox having just bronze, so he's still missing at least a few upgrades in here, but still he's going to be having the advantage, not only in numbers, because he's at 40 Cs right now, because he's occupying one of Shelties, but because he does have the mercenaries on top of that, and same is true for Magic. So that's like, I don't know, one extra TC, one extra, maybe in the strength of the unit it's like 2 extra TCs for both of these players, so it's like very hard for Honor players to do anything about it and land their opponents. Yep, you can see that it's going exactly the expected way, and the battle is probably not going to be all that long, and Metallo is going to be losing this position reasonably soon, even though he is doing what he can. In the meantime, Big Wall of China is happening to basically prevent any kind of landing, like just happened at the top, whereas at the bottom we are seeing that actually Red has lost his front EC. Is he not going to be finishing with the palace? Because you can see Purple still fighting for the water like mad, and definitely having the upper hand above his opponent, even though he is having heavy BRMS and literally all the upgrades that he can get. Yeah, Yellow also helping Shelty, because he could definitely use the extra down center. So yep, quite tough situation right now for Green Sea Squash, who doesn't seem to be all that ready for what is coming for him. And yeah, we see like literally nothing. No military buildings, nothing. So he's having basically everything just at the top, but it's of course going to be lost pretty soon, as we are seeing a whole lot of siege at the bottom, and the army quite nicely upgraded by heavy Murmilos, and well, there is also the catapult coming up. Right now we are seeing the Titan Gate, but much more importantly, there was the Resign Forgot line, which wasn't really his doing. Unfortunately, it was because of activation of the anti-cheat on Shadeback. I'm going to be looking at it once the recorded game finishes. As of course, that is quite unfortunate, but I'm going to be talking about it in just a minute. Yeah, right now the rest of the players are going to be resigning, and to exactly show you what happened. That's because he unfortunately put too many shades into his transport boat because he was trying to land on the opponent's side. And that does get, unfortunately, detected by the anti-cheat on Ruble. That protects against the shade glitch. The shade glitch is basically a glitch that allows you to summon infinite amount of shades, and it gets detected by the anti-cheat in a way that when you are having them on basically exactly one spot on the map, it triggers. And of course, when you put them on the transport boat, it happens. But to be completely honest, this is like the first time, maybe even ever, that it has activated like this, because usually you don't really have a reason to put them into transport boat. These maps are not played. Black Sea is basically the first tournament used, and the only other map is River Nile, which is played like never. So this is probably the very first usage of transport boat for shades in like, I don't know, years. So yep, this wasn't accounted for, and this is kinda sucky, but that did happen. If we have a look at overall the situation, we have seen that basically the water was in full strength, or rather in full power, of Iron Magic at the end of the recorded game, even though they are attempting on the players to go back into the other side, or rather on the other side of the water to come back. Still, they are facing double Egyptians, which is always such a tough situation on water, and you can see the spam of the docks basically continuing, and it's very hard to do anything with it. And if we continue with the line of thinking in here, the front DC for Green Sea Squash was off, the water was in full control, and that of course would have meant that Shelty or Magic or even Fox could be transporting units or other villages to this DC very easily, and since Green Sea Squash is not ready for it at all, and other units from his teammates are, yeah, quite far away, the military buildings, like at the very top, the help probably wouldn't receive, or rather would be in time, and much more importantly, Honor players are out of any options. Out of any options. They have no option how to land their opponents. You can see they don't have underworld passages anymore, they don't have shifting sands, they have nothing. Just Shelty, who is on the scrap, is having triple vortex, So of course that's a cheap transport, and on top of that, of course, the Rust do have rocks, and they can do what Magic did a bit earlier, basically infinite times. So yeah, there's really not much of a reason why not to assume that the Scrubs wouldn't take the game the whole way. Of course, especially since they are in a pretty great position, getting rid of the landing from Metallo, and also getting rid of all the landing at the bottom, as Shelty is just mopping up of all, rather getting rid of all the buildings. Well, that was pretty good game actually. Pretty good game. So let's check the post game. Got Fox as the MVP. Well, he was definitely helped by the 4th TC, so it doesn't really reflect anything all that much. And I think it's kind of hard to choose who played the best, but he was paying so much attention at the top, building fast enough with the towers and such, so yeah, he kind of deserves a bit of a highlight in this game. Best economy for Magic, by like a truckload. Really pretty big advantage above the other players. And he has distributed 15,000 resources. Well, I would be thinking that was to Shelty, because he was, of course, receiving the shortest end of the stick through the whole game. The amount of the villages and the fishing boats and the trade routes, of course, or the trade caravans, all around 100. Pretty similar advance times across the players. Well, GG.